Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is another Tuesday morning. It's another Tuesday morning. We done made it to the first Tuesday of June, first Tuesday of the summer, first Tuesday of, like come on, let's work it out. It's a Tuesday morning and you are here joining for a morning cup of coffee with Mary May, leadership strategist. And before making any decision, make sure you have a cup of coffee or tea. Today I'm rocking out Do You Love Candles from another segment of life, but in my cup of coffee this morning. In this conversation, we will continue to identify ways in which the GPS formula that I have created for leaders to kind of level up in their career, um, what that formula helps them to peel back, identify with, and removing any barriers and blind spots that they may have that is preventing them from being able to successfully level up in their career. So every Tuesday morning, I come to you with a couple of nuggets and then we can engage in conversation because the floor is open for you to interact with me in this space around the conversation that we're having. Whether you catch us live or on the replay, I will come back and share some love and feedback and energy to whatever comment that you have shared with us or inquired about. But then I also do have the opportunity for you to identify what are some of the things that are blocking you from being passed over and go from being well paid and promoted while next leveling your career. So again, every Tuesday morning, I thank you guys for joining me in this conversation as I am well intentioned in ensuring that you get the nuggets that you need so that the leveling up conversation that you seek and desire for your career, for your leveling up, for your ability to just really have that conversation with yourself, but then also with those people who would sign the contract to activate your ability to not only get the promotion that you would like to live, but be able to create that balance of life on your terms. And so, in thinking about that, and the conversation for the stage and platform today is that I hope to bring some light bulbs to your professional identification, your professional development, and give yourself permission to really, really look into a personal inventory. And so today, in our focus, we want to talk about being a CEO, but in order to level up and become a CEO, chief officer, executive officer in your own life, in your own career, sometimes we got to pull the curtain back. And being able to do that requires us to maintain grit. And grit in the workplace looks a little different in the fact that what grit looked like back in the day versus what grit looks like. I'm going to say 2020 forward, but I could probably go back even some earlier years than that. But I think we all can resonate that after 2020, life in the professional world, life as how you show up for yourself, all is different. And so, in thinking about maintaining grit in the workplace and in your leadership, is the focus nugget of today. And in thinking about that, it's like, how do you activate your leadership, and where does your leadership truly, in fact, come from? And when you think about the word grit, I really would like to know what is your first thing that comes to mind when you do think of the word grit. But also, we will kind of walk through and identify how grit was probably downloaded for us growing up, and then in our lives growing. And when I say growing up, I do mean from our younger years, but then also growing up in our professional career, and then what it means now and how it is that we activate that in our practice. So, survival to CEO, activation in practice. So, in one of the essences of that activation in practice is that recognizing that as a leader in your space, that you have always been in a positioning place or being positioned for leveling up or for promoting, or you put your eye on a prize and you identify how it is, okay, well, that looks appealing, or it appears that I'm qualified to do this other position. What is it that I need? And in this season right now, where we are, looking at achievements, where people are obtaining certificates, degrees, advancements, in all different aspects of life, we always look at what are some of those skills that we have obtained along the way, and how do we activate grit? How did we activate, like, from the lens of accomplishment, where we praised ourselves? We had to make some shifts. And you often, if you've been following me, often hear me talk about those 2 millimeter shifts. They're necessary in order for you to grow, because who you are today, you can easily get comfortable, but then you end up missing that opportunity and not recognizing what exactly may be blinding you from being able to level up. So let's first look at what some of the words that are connected to defining grit. So when you look to defining what grit is, and I guess how it is actually activated, grit is a noun. It's usually looked at as courage, bravery, having a backbone, a positive spirit, a strength of character, strength of will, fortitude, toughness, resolve, determination, endurance, guts, and spunk. So it's like, how do you, like, really, really navigate into understanding how you get to the level of grit, like the level of accomplishment, and able to sustain? Because there's certain things that you would need to sustain on the other side. Like, once you gain a promotion, do you have it all? Do you have what it takes to be able to manage yourself effectively? And how do you actually get there? Like, that accomplishment, like, to get certificates or degrees, whatever that was for you. It took some survival, it took some sacrifice, it took some decisions and deciding to break away from one thing so that you can elevate towards something different. So when you think about what it is that you have chosen to elevate away from, you begin to identify how it is and what's the intentionality that you have with making sure that you are successful. And so one of the things, as far as an example, like shifting it from leadership, but not really shifting it from leadership, because leadership shows up in a lot of different ways, and sometimes we get distracted, intimidated by the words that we hear or expect when we hear leadership role or leadership expectations or anything leadership. We believe that if it's not in our title, then it's not necessarily matching for us. But the thing is that leadership is not about a title, it's about action. It's about what it is that you activate. So think about, let's take a moment and think about an athlete. An athlete may want to get to whatever their highest level of of achievement may be. And in order to get there, they have to practice a skill. They have to be aware of, like, some strategies that they need to develop, and they need to have commitment to that skill development. And so that skill development would be that they are finding out how it is that they can invest and building up their ability and building up how it is that they will be able to show up in their game or whatever their athletic preference is, by practicing, by investing, by learning new strategies, by practicing those strategies, and being committed to their skill development so that it can again be activated out on a skill. And we could also think about musicians. Today is Prince's birthday, so I'm going shout out. You see me rocking out my purple in celebration of Prince as a musician. But think about the achievements that Prince as a musician has achieved. He knows and has studied several instruments, which took reading music, took practicing those different things, where he was very masterful in that. And so, in learning how to be masterful in those various instruments, it took time, it took investment, it took, wanting something really, really with a determined focus where you were being mindful, he was being intentional on what his outcome was. Well, now his outcome is that there's albums beyond his ability to be breathing on schedule on this earth that he can be let one album can be let out for the next 30 years, I think the number is that someone says, and he's no longer with us. That's somebody who's practicing and determined about their skill, just as an athlete would be. So when you pivot it back and thinking about leaders, leaders seeking to level up should also be trying to pull that curtain back and see how it is that they can stand and how it is that they function and build themselves up for being able to stand is how they invest. And when I talk about investment, I don't necessarily, I mean, it may come with a financial investment, but I mean, how do you build your capacity and how do you build that muscle? It's always like a 2 millimeter shift. So when you look at grit and you look at your determination and you look at how it is that you are focused on having that fortitude, that diligence, that commitment to ensure that you're doing everything that it's going to take so that you can get the promotion that you desire. The thing about it is that you have to understand that as long as you are comfortable, comfortable is not where growth is. Comfortable is being complacent and is possibly nurturing a situation that is an abusive relationship with your work career and with your work ethics and with your integrity on how it is that you show up. And so you don't, or you want to be mindful of things that you have survived from in life before this particular position is being presented to you, where you're being positioned for your leveling up in your career. But you have to also think about the things that you have done to survive to get to where you are. You may be in a space where your 2 millimeter shift, you have to kind of really, really listen and be aware of your surroundings and understand and remember your purpose and the reasons why whatever your goal is set with clarity and conviction, that that's exactly where you want to position yourself to be. But then also realizing that sometimes when you have made major sacrifices, it has developed a narrative, it has developed like a certain action or way of being and how you present yourself. But being obsessed with your growth helps you to always reframe how you can show up and show up better for yourself. With the layers of like the thinking about how you do building the muscle and building the capacity, making those shifts and building that capacity so that you can do something different that you have never done. Yes, you have created some skill sets from your survival mode to become the CEO. But when you begin to put that activation in practice, you have to be consistently building that muscle that's going to build your capacity to help you make those shifts seamlessly, where you're not in a space where you are always trying to over self correct. Now, what do I mean by that? If you are in a space where you find that you may be trying to over self correct, and I use my hashtag daily divorce of self, where you're trying to convince yourself that you are qualified, but you seem to feel as if you are being overlooked and not really being able to achieve the promotion or the next positioning skill set or the next contract that you desire, you may be in competition or doing something that's in the not in alignment with where it is that you want to go. And it might be a default that you have from previous experiences where you have survived and been able to sustain, that you're trying to outwork someone else in the 9 to 5 and not really realizing that you don't have to outwork the person. You just really need to simply be you authentically in your space and be able to turn that narrative off that says that you're, qualified, not qualified, certificate, no certificate. You have the skills already poured in you. So when you think about how it is that you function actively using grit, you're diligent, which means you have self control. You have perseverance, which means you have passion. You have stick to itness with the optimism and definitely the tenacity to know your purpose. The challenge when you may need to pull the curtain back and put the grit in perspective could come in with the passion. Sometimes the way that you see the passion is what makes your goals unclear and what makes what you're trying to communicate also unclear. So when creating that balance and you're very optimistic on what the outcome will be and what you would like it to be, you also have to make sure that with your diligence, with the investment, with the tenacity that shaped all together in the framework of how it is that you plan to move forward, that you're showing up the way that you want to show up. That you're not, that once you get to the other side of the table, the other side of the curtain, that your sustainability will not be challenged and you will not be seen as someone who is brittle and too sensitive and unable to sustain the skill. So the way to create that balance would be identifying the balance in a sense where how you utilize your 9 to 5 time and how it is that you use whatever that commitment and how you show up, that how are you sticking to the goals that you have for the purpose that the 9 to 5 job has for you. And as you think about being overworked and underpaid or overlooked and not considered for the promotion, how is it that you are utilizing the time that you have to build up your grit and build up your skill and build up your ability such that you can have a different perspective on being able to sustain yourself on that other side? So if you do have a 9 to 5, you may like it, you may not like it. But if you're in the position of leveling up your career and changing your focus and your goals and being with intention, then the time that you have between 5 and 9, which is the highest critical time. And yes, we're always talking about creating that balance and self care. However, 5 to 9 is the time that you have for yourself to have the highest commitment and to have the highest personal time of investment. Doesn't have to be every day, although it's recommended. But if you utilize that time and build experiences to help build your capacity, you would begin to position yourself unapologetically for anything that you're trying to level up for. And the curtain will not get closed on you because your bandwidth of building your focus and your bandwidth of being able to stay with positive intentions of that diligence, that perseverance, and being able to convey it in a way that you know you're in a space that you're supposed to be does not change the perspective of how you can lead with your unique footprint. And it does not change the perspective of how it is that you can show up for yourself as a leader. Now, the thing is that's different is that remember, want to be mindful of the 2 millimeter shifts that you are charging yourself to elevate to and evolve into. um, that grit calls for you to pull out the remarkable, courageous personality and leader from within. That leader within you comes out unapologetically. You could be in a casual situation and see something where leadership is necessary and you step in to assist. You also may find yourself doing that in the workplace. However, it takes a different level of balancing and perspective taking where the new value of grit comes with the conversation of self-care and emotional wellness, where you can step up and step into leadership unapologetically in the absence of being activating that survival strength that you have to get to this particular part, but being mindful that the survival has made you the person that you are, but it doesn't have to make you the person that's reactive and sensitive and overthinking and overworking and over self-correcting, but that the new value of grit that you have is calling for you to be that remarkable leader that you already are. And in thinking about that new value of grit that you being the remarkable leader, sometimes when you are making these shifts, it calls for a different mindset. It calls for a different level of energy and a different level of capacity that you have not experienced yet. And because you're working towards something that you have never experienced and may not be surrounded around others who have, you have to build that muscle. And by building that muscle, you are diligently using what could be perceived as free time. Remember, I mentioned the 5 to 9 in the evening, but that whatever free time looks like for you, but that you are consistently figuring out ways that when you pull that curtain back, when you position yourself, when you walk into that conference room or to your leader's office and request a review of what your pay grade is, your skill set, and how it is that you want to show up unapologetically in this leadership role, you do not have to worry about being able to fall back into the survival conversation and the survival thought process of thinking that your capacity is not matching the quality of what people are looking for. But that positioning to going from being passed over and growing into the role that you look for, it calls for a journey that can be mapped out through the GPS and identified, where you're able to peel back the layers and be intentional on how you show up in the 9 to 5 effectively, being prepared for the promotion that you're seeking, as well as being open to how it is that you are investing and it's showing. What you're doing is showing on the inside and the outside. So if this sounds like some place that you are trying to kind of navigate people identifying you as maybe not really ready for the promotion that you have had conversations about, or you find that you may have felt overlooked at times that you were qualified, and you're not sure if possibly things that you have survived in your life over the seasons of growth, both personally and professionally, those fabric or those things that may be showing up as blind spots that you're not aware of, I would encourage you to have a discovery blueprint call to look and navigate and identify what is it that is in your GPS. What are the blind spots? What are the barriers that's keeping you from leveling up your career, keeping you from leveling up your relationships, keeping you from having that life that you desire? Because when you decide to build that muscle and build that bandwidth, you're going to need some assistance to continue to stay that path, because it's not going to be an easy journey. But if you're committed and you have that grit, you have that stick to itness, you have that perseverance, that tenacity that we've talked about, then it works side by side, that you would say, okay, how can I invest in myself so I can keep this stamina up? Again, think about the athlete that we talked about earlier. The athlete cannot do the capacity of however many quarters, however many minutes in the game that they're supposed to play, if they are not building up that skill and building that capacity off the court. So they're off the court. If they did the 9 to 5 is on the court, their 5 to 9 is off the court. They put in time, they put in skill. The musician that becomes the accomplished musician, yes, at the concert you enjoy it, you rocking it out and you having a great time, but off the stage they have to put in time, they have to put in practice, they have to develop those skills, they have to pull the curtain back to make sure that when they go on tour or when they begin to perform, that they have the stamina, the wherewithal, that they show up for who it is that they want to show up as the effective leader in their space. Want the same thing for you. Want to be able to help guide you in being able to do the same thing. So it's like, if this makes sense to you, I mean, why not? Why not get a, you know, have a conversation where we can figure out how we can get you from where you are today, your current reality, to your preferred, your desired place of being, your desired place of leveling up your career. And you can do that if you choose to go to workwithmarymay.com. There is a free gift there waiting for you. And I always, you know, it's always available. But I look forward to continuing to have these conversations. And if there is, I can't tell if there is anybody who has any comments or questions or thoughts that they would like to share at this time. I know that there's often a delay when using different resources in social media. So I want to give a space for you to place those questions available in the comments section. And I'll take a cup of coffee, sip of coffee. And I hope that you, if you are a Prince fan, that you share some love in celebrating what would have been his, I believe, 64th birthday today. And rock out your purple, however you want to rock out your purple. And I just look forward to seeing you on the other side. I want to thank you for those who catch me here live, for those who catch me on a replay. And if you find that this message may help someone that you know as they are developing and nurturing building grit, then please feel free to share. And I look forward to having a conversation with you moving forward. If you are someone who is striving and working for leadership and there is a topic that you are challenged with and want to learn more about, feel free to send it to me and I'll put it in the rotation for a Tuesday leadership nugget conversation. um, until then, I look forward to seeing you next Tuesday if I don't see you before then. So you stay well, you take care. And again, thank you for joining this Tuesday's Cup of Coffee with Mary May to get in your leadership nuggets. You have a wonderful and productive day and week. Stay well and stay safe.